bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! And good morning, Eagles Nation. You got your boys, Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. Hope you all did your civic duty yesterday, got out and voted after you listened to John McMullen tell you why the Philadelphia Eagles are 8-0. We're going to do the same again today. They're still undefeated. Nothing has changed. And oh, by the way, the weeks are getting more difficult. When we had the Phillies to fill in the blanks between Eagles games, it made it easier. Flyers got a nice win last night, but we have to wait all the way till Monday.
You got the Flyers. You know, people got other stuff to complain about.
And not as high profile as the Phillies being in the playoffs / World Series. So
World Series,
there's a bit of a drop off there. Is the point I'm trying to make, Johnny Mac. But we all wait patiently from Eagle game to Eagle game. We got to wait a little more patiently this week because the Eagles don't play till Monday. But at least J Mac got to go over and hear pearls of wisdom from the Eagles assistant coaches, aka coordinators. Did you glean anything from as far as insight goes from any of the Eagles' top under lieutenants to Nick Sirianni yesterday?
Not really. They're batting down. You know how the Eagles are, and their coordinators even more so because they don't want to color outside the circles, as we say. Nick Sirianni's firmly entrenched of this organization when it comes to on the field stuff, football side. He's got everybody in line. So when you do get stuff, it's generally coming straight from the horse's mouth, Nick Sirianni. I mean, you got some Nakobe Dean info, so which I still can't figure out. But I don't with it's such an interesting comparison because you have Cam Jurgens as the second round pick. And nobody questions why Cam Jurgens doesn't play for obvious reasons, right? I mean, Jason Kelsey, all-pro player, could be a potential future Hall of Famer. So I get it. I get the difference. But everybody's like, Nakobe. Not noticing that TJ Edwards is a top 10 player at his position. I mean, and he has been all year. If you look at all the PFF grades and just the eye test and how he's playing, but the difference is Jason's entrenched and Jason's got the reputation. Everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now I bring this up, Jody, because I'm going to break one of my own rules, but only a little bit. There's a lot of, and Mike Gill is going to be on the show, pointed this out to me. I didn't hear it. Dan Orlovsky said something outrageous yesterday, basically that anybody could play in this offense and play at the level Jalen Hurts is, which I couldn't believe it came from Dan's mouth, to be honest. Yeah. And I'm like,
did not see or hear about this.
That is such disrespect for the quarterback. And then ESPN does this thing with an executives talking about the Eagles. And you got these old tropes. I don't know if they're battle tested. And it's all about the quarterback. Still, people outside of Philadelphia don't believe in the quarterback. Now that is disrespect. Now, ultimately, I'm only halfway breaking my own rule because I don't give a crap about anybody else's opinion. That's their opinion, and I just generally move on. And at the end of the day, I don't care about their opinions, but I do find it amazing. What does this guy got to do just because he doesn't have the pedigree? It's always about the pedigree in this league. TJ Edwards can't play because he's an undrafted free agent. Well, I watch him play every week. He looks like he can play. The shoe ain't coming. This is a large sample size now. Jalen Hurts, because he's a second-round pick and he's not a top-5 pick, I don't give a hoot. I mean, and the name they brought up was Justin Fields, who's doing some nice things from an athleticism standpoint. But you got to be kidding me if you think Justin Fields is stepping into this offense and they would be 8-0. I mean, part of it is Jalen Hurts learning on the job and being farther ahead and all that. And you could talk about ceiling down the road because I know you're a Justin Fields fan. But right now, I mean, come on. I mean, the Eagles have gone through these growing pains with Jalen Hurts. They are sort of reaping the rewards of player development, which I talk about all the time. And by the way, I think Justin Fields would be in a much better situation if he's in Philadelphia with this coaching staff. But, I guess you can look at it that way and say, Dan thinks this is the greatest coaching staff in history because they think they can win with anybody. But I disagree with that. And
right. Here's where I would take that comment and take it another step. That must make A.J. Brown the greatest football player who's ever lived, because this is basically the same exact offense they had last year when they went 9-8, right, Johnny Mac?
Yeah.
So the only thing that's changed, how many changes did they have on the coaching staff?
And that's one of the stability there is one of
zero. They changed no coaches. We talked about it during the offseason.
Yeah.
It's unheard of that a coaching staff would make no changes. They kept it completely intact. You got the 5 offensive starting linemen. You got the tight end. You got the other 2 wide receivers. You got Miles Sanders. You got the quarterback. So they made one change. And the addition of A.J. Brown makes it into an offense that any quarterback in the league could step in and have that kind of success. Are you kidding me?
And
Does he
you
actually mean it? What did he say it with a straight face? I'm not trying to put A.J. Brown's minimize is the word I'm looking for. His contribution this year and the kind of season he's having.
Yeah.
It's been phenomenal.
You know how I feel about A.J. Brown. He's the domino.
That's one player out of 11. One.
Yeah.
They changed one player, and it made it so drastically better that they went from a team that was 9-8 to a team that's undefeated. And the only reason is because A.J. Brown. Come on. Yeah. That's not giving anybody, the quarterback for sure, because he's specifically saying any quarterback could be plugged in. But you're giving no credit to anybody else. Yeah. It's all about A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown lifted this team from a just above 500 to the best team in the NFL, undefeated at 8-0. Come on, Dan Orlovsky.
I think, and Mike will be on the show. He played the clip for me, so it's real. And I think it was Keyshawn Johnson, I think, but we can clarify with Mike, who basically agreed. So it was more than one person as well. AJ, and I've talked about it since day one. He's a big domino. Like all the pieces fit in place because of AJ Brown. So he's a big part of it. I think Dan was talking more about the coaching staff and how good they are, and they're a big part of it as well. But man, you're downplaying the improvement of Jalen Hurts, the work ethic, the intangibles, everything we always talk about with Jalen Hurts. And everybody says, well, Jalen Hurts is a great athlete and he can run the football and he's dual threat. I said the most impressive part, his improved accuracy, all of that. And still the most impressive part is the decision-making. That's the most impressive part, that and the ball security. His decision-making this season, which is the angst of every young quarterback in this league, and I mean every single one of them, from the top-tier guys like Trevor Lawrence and best prospects since insert name to tremendously talented guys like Justin Fields. Every single one of them has issues with decision making because you got to play the position, you got to learn the position, you got to understand the position, you got to understand the offense. That is incredible disrespect to all the decision making, and it's been unbelievable to the point I can't believe it. I didn't see it coming. We asked Shane Steichen again yesterday. He said he saw it coming. No, he didn't. The Eagles didn't see it coming. You know, Howie Roseman's making all the calls in the offseason. They want you to forget about it, but it existed. They didn't see it coming. So if they didn't see it coming, who gets credit for it? Now, I think Nick Sirianni's a very good head coach. I think Shane Steichen's a very good offensive coordinator. I think he's going to be a head coach in this league. That's how well he's doing. I think Brian Johnson is a good position coach. He's going to be a coordinator. Maybe he's a future head coach. Who knows? But man, it's the guy doing the stinking work. It's the guy doing the work. Like, you know me in power rankings. Like, I don't give any credence to any of them. People get upset about them. I just, this one actually tweaked me a little bit. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And these are national guys who aren't around, so I get it. They don't see Jalen Hurts every day. They don't see the improvement from, you know, year to year, week to week, play to play. You know, he's never going to be a top 5 pick. All right. That's over. He can't be a top 5 pick. He's playing like a top 5 pick. Whether he's second in the betting markets or first in the betting markets for MVP, you're telling me any starting quarterback can come into this situation and play at an MVP level? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That really is.
And if you want to say, well, there's been improvement. So the coaches are allowed to improve. The coaches are allowed to go from a team that went 9-8 to a team that is now 8-0. And wow, they've shown this massive improvement. But the quarterback is static. How does that work? You can acknowledge that a coaching staff in its second year can take leaps and bounds in improvement, but the quarterback's just the quarterback. You plug him in there and always in the system. So that's why the system, because the system is all that
most
great.
Important
it's
position
idiotic.
in sports. Most important position in sports. You could argue starting pitcher on a particular game day in baseball, but you know that's once every 5 days. Most important position in sports, and you're acting like it's not a big deal. You can insert anybody because of what I mean. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that kind of opinion.
It's just plain dumb. All right, I do want to ask about one other thing about your boy JG, because I watched the video after the fact about the coordinator speaking, and he seemed to get his feathers in a ruff a little bit with the fact that some people have said, like Jody McDonald and John McMullen, that in the Eagles being far and away the best turnover team in the National Football League, some of that is luck. Now, there's a key. You got to use your words very carefully here. Some of it is luck.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that Jonathan didn't like those who said it's all about luck, which, of course, it isn't. It isn't all about luck. But it's not all about being the most aggressive, the taught to slap at the ball kind of thing. There's some luck involved. It's a balance. It's skill, it's talent, it's coaching, it's mindset, and there's some luck involved there. It's like a spice you put on top. And JG got really put off yesterday that this has nothing to do with luck. This is what we teach. This is my guide. This is what we work on. There's a little luck involved here too, JG. Just we need to find a happy medium here and acknowledge there's some luck involved, but it's not all luck. He really got a little out of sorts yesterday, at least for me. You were there.
I mean, maybe it read a little bit differently. He wasn't. I mean, coaches don't like. He wasn't upset or anything. Coaches don't like the term luck. I mean, Nick Sirianni said the same thing on Friday. They don't like that term luck. So I've started using random. They're more in tune with random. And by the way, in the same answer, he admitted they come in bunches. They come, you know, sometimes there is a randomness, and then Shane Steichen talked about Jalen Hurts losing a fumble, the first Eagles lost fumble in the 8th game of the season, and he said sometimes that just happens,
but that's not luck.
Yeah, and that's why I say I use the term because they don't want to dismiss, and I get it. They don't want to dismiss the hard work of the players. They don't want to dismiss that fact, the talent of the players, and that's why I think they're more accepting of the term random or randomness. They understand there's a randomness to it, but then the other part, and this is where JG is correct. The Eagles got a bunch of guys who take the football away. Like Hassan Reddick has a knack for the strip sack. I mean, he's good at it. There are players that are good at it and players that aren't good at it. James Bradbury is a tremendously savvy cornerback. Always ripping my guy, Bob Groats. Tremendously savvy player. I've joked he could join the Pro Anglers League, the fishing league, because he baits so many quarterbacks into making bad throws. That's a trait. Not every cornerback has it. We know Darius Slay's ability to take the football away. He's already been here. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's a playmaker.
Yeah,
he's a playmaker. Yeah, he's a playmaker. Not only does he make the plays, very much like Trayvon Diggs in Dallas. We had that conversation, or not we're Birds 365, but a lot of people had the conversation last year. Well, Diggs gets a lot of interceptions, but he gives up a lot of big plays. Well, yeah, that's part of it. Chauncey, takes chances. He's a playmaker. He's more apt to turn the football over than Anthony Harris or Rodney McLeod. It's just as simple as that.
But here's what my follow-up to JG would have been. Okay, if it's all about technique and what you're taught and mindset and has nothing to do with randomness or luck, same thing as far as I'm concerned, but I see what you're trying to do there. Good for you, John. Then it's all about lack of coaching and technique and everything else, that you're the worst tackling team in the National Football League. You can't have it both ways. That, okay, if it's all about everything that the players do and are coached to do and are drilled into their mind that they got to do, when do you correct the inability to tackle? You're 32nd in the National Football League. Doesn't one play off the other?
No. In fact, one of the reasons they're a bad tackling team is because they make so many turnovers and they're always trying to strip the football. One thing
that's my point. If you want to take the praise for getting the turnovers, you got to take the grief for being the worst tackling team in the National Football League.
One thing about JG is he will answer the question eventually, and it might come in another question. So if you read the entire transcript, he talks about the give and take nature of that. He talks about it all the time. The give and take nature of defensive football in the NFL. If you're going to, it might be coverage, you try to take somebody away. Somebody else has tough duty, as he describes it. If you're trying to take the football away and strip it, probably Avonte Maddox is the best indication of that, because he probably tries to strip it a little bit too much and misses so many tackles because of it. Sometimes you're going to give some issues up. And I think the Eagles have made this decision. And by the way, again, we're in a large sample size, Jody. We're through 8 games. They made the right decision. It's more important to turn the football over than it is to be the worst tackling team in football, because the worst tackling team in football, I believe they did an adjustment. They're 31. I believe Jacksonville's again number 32. But either way, they're among the worst tackling teams in football, and they're the only undefeated team in football.
Undefeated, right?
So they made the right decision.
I would tend to agree, but if you're going to get your feathers in an uproar because some people notes that there's randomness to being that good in the best turnover team in the National Football League, then you got to be willing to say, yeah, and we could be better at tackling. We're 30, 32nd, 31st, whatever. We're bad. As long as there's a balance. If you're going to get upset about one thing, you got to be willing to take the heat on the other. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. You got Mac and Mac on Birds 365. We're headed down the shore for from the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN Radio. Mike Gill's going to join us next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers.
It's a fall car fest, and Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, says, yes, you can. Jeff says, yes, you can choose from over 1,000 vehicles in stock with no wait. Yes, you can still get low prices, leases, and big discounts. Yes, you can still get low interest financing. And Jeff always says, yes, you can have a real deal buying experience without the hassle. When the other dealers say, no, you can't, Jeff says, yes, you can. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Jeep Adventure Days.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
At Salus University, our graduates are among the most highly trained in their profession because of our unique emphasis on research, interprofessional collaboration, and early clinical exposure. Learn more about our programs at salus.edu.
You got your Mac guys, John McMullen and Jordan McDonald here on Birds 365, a midweek episode of undefeated football conversation because Eagles have not lost yet this year, despite the fact that John and I may nitpick at times certain things about the team. Well, like Jalen Hurts like to say, we're not there yet. We're not there. We can still get better. We can do this better. Well, McMullen and McDonald say the same thing. And Mike Gill is a bit of a perfectionist, so we'll get him to chime in and do the exact same with us today. What's the biggest problem the Philadelphia Eagles have right now, Mike, at undefeated 8-0?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, their special teams aren't great. You don't tackle very well. And I guess apparently, according to many, they haven't played anybody yet.
Yeah, that's true.
They haven't been pushed.
And
They
by the
haven't
way,
been tested.
according to a scant few, they could still beat anybody with any quarterback. You turned me on to that. That one had me shaking my head. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Mike. Why? I think it's pedigree. I just told Jody. Why can't people get Jalen Hurts is never going to be a top 5 pick overall. Never going to be. It's over. He was a second round pick. That's what he was. He's playing like a top 5 overall pick. Yet it seems like many people just aren't going to believe in Jalen Hurts. We're at 11 and counting. This team's been around since 1933. Nobody else has been able to do that. Can we give the kids some credit?
Well, there's a lot of discussion here, guys, where one, when when the fans have a predetermined thought of a person or a player's ability, it is hard for them to do two things. Change that thought, one, because then they would be wrong about their initial thought. Nobody wants to say, man, I was wrong. So they will continue to say, yeah, Hurts is okay, but it's because of X, Y, and Z. It's not really him that has become the good player. It's that he got good players around him. And then you get anybody could do what he's doing because of these other guys. So there's this perception of whatever your mindset was of Jalen Hurts when he was the quarterback for 4 games the one year, then last year, and then entering this year, it was, he's just okay. We need an upgrade. Nobody wants to say, I was wrong. This guy's the guy. We do it with teams. We don't want to give teams credit because of what their history is. The Bengals aren't any good. Well, they were in the Super Bowl last year, but nobody wanted to believe in the Bengals until they got to the Super Bowl. We're doing it now with teams like the Jets and the Giants because their recent history and the Jets' history, sorry, Jody, hasn't been very good. Nobody wants to give them credit for their.
Well, that's true. I won't give the Giants credit. So you're right. You're definitely tapped in. But remember, this was Dan Orlovsky. This was not some run-of-the-mill Joe Bann or even me. This is Dan Orlovsky saying.
Does anybody remember, was Orlovsky an anti-Hurts guy coming out in the draft? I don't remember that he was anti or pro-Hurts. I didn't think he had a strong stance.
That's why I was
Hurts
so surprised.
One way or the other.
I never got any of that, but I was surprised, and Mike played me the clip.
Just for the context, he said that the Philadelphia offense is a perfect situation for quarterbacks, basically because they can do anything. They can run, they can throw, they have a great offensive line, they have weapons, and essentially the conversation became that you could put a variety of quarterbacks into this offense and they would be excelling too. So I don't know if it's a shot at Hurts as much as it's a praise. Now, the addition to the conversation was, well, you could throw Justin Fields in there and this team would be 8-0 because they're that good. I don't know that that's the case. I think Hurts deserves a lot of credit, but I will also say, John and Jody, Hurts was a second-round pick, and you're saying, well, he's never going to be a top-5 pick. But for some reason, people did believe at some point in Russell Wilson, who was a third-round pick. So when did the
it happens.
When did the people make the change to no, this guy's really good? Drew Brees, second-round pick. I mean, Tom Brady, obviously, historically. But I guess people's minds can be changed.
Oh, yeah.
It has.
I made the comparison before you came on, Mike. And this year's draft is a perfect example. Nobody questions why Cam Jurgens doesn't play because Jason Kelce is what Jason Kelce is. But Jason Kelce was a 6th-round pick. So that changed somewhere along the way. Everybody questions why Nakobe Dean, not everybody, but a lot of people question why Nakobe Dean can't play, even though TJ Edwards is sitting there as a top 10 linebacker in this league, and people don't recognize that yet because it's too soon. It can change, as you mentioned. It has changed. You bring up Russell Wilson, Kelce. I guess it takes time, but it's interesting because you have Jurgens. Nobody questioned. Jurgens was the 2nd-round pick. Nobody questions why he doesn't play. And every week, I get Nakobe. When is Nakobe going to get on the field? Well, why would Nakobe get on the field? Nothing against Nakobe. It's a luxury pick, just like Cam Jurgens.
Yeah, he was a guy that just happened to be there in the 3rd round, and it's almost like, we can't afford not to take him at this point. I mean, the grade we have on him, we'd be fools not. And not to mention, they didn't really know that Kaiser White was going to be a standout player. They signed him for a year and thought, okay, we got a more athletic linebacker who had some success in Los Angeles. Let's bring him in here. TJ Edwards had been a guy that they liked, but I don't think they thought he would be anchoring their defense. This guy has just jumped off the page and basically put it to the point where they I don't know who asked the question yesterday to John Gannon. Hey, do you want to put a package in for Nakobe Dean? And Gannon was like, we want to put a package in for everybody, but why? This isn't like high school football or the junior league where I need to get some playing time for kids or they might transfer. No, I'm playing my best guys. And Jody, you've been asking the question, why aren't they playing some of these guys and give them some more experience? I think the secondary guys they don't trust. And I'm not saying they don't trust Dean, but I think they're saying these guys are so good, I don't want to take them off the field.
Right, but here's my point as to what you were referencing, Mike, and I want to make sure everybody understands it. They've been well ahead in the fourth quarter in 2 consecutive games. And I don't care whether Jonathan Gannon thinks he's an NFL coach or a high school coach or a peewee coach. If you've got a lead that you don't think your team is bad enough to blow, there's no reason not to get guys onto the field and get them experience. Gannon himself said it last week. Yeah, sure, there's nothing that compares to in-game reps. Well, then get him some in-game reps.
I agree with you on that. I agree.
What are we talking about here?
I agree with you that if you're up 3 scores in the fourth quarter, let me get the speed of the game for these guys.
Yeah, that's different. A blowout. Yeah, I'm with Jody.
Well, how many reps did Dean get last week?
None.
One.
Oh, okay.
He got one.
One.
He's
one
had
rep.
4.
Good job, JG. Get him that experience he needs.
He's had 4 reps all year.
Yeah, and I guess the question with him would be, because somebody asked the question yesterday. I saw it in the transcript. Do you want a package for him? And he kind of just said, yeah, we want it for everybody. But they have TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. And we don't want to go looking ahead to how you're moving along to the offseason. But I would imagine bringing both those guys back is going to be difficult. How do you understand if Nakobe Dean can handle the speed of the game if he doesn't get any reps in the speed of the game? Slay is back next year, presumably. Bradbury's a free agent. If you want to have to make a decision on Bradbury, how do I understand if I can just let him walk if I don't know what the next guy can do without getting some reps in the real game?
I'm going to disagree with that because this team is trying to win a Super Bowl. So they're worried about this season. They're not worried about Howie's job. And by the way, JG might not even be here. Shane Steichen might not even be here. They're trying to win football games today, tomorrow.
The coordinators next year will be Frank Reich and Vic Fangio, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about Frank and Vic for that reason. Well, let's go there since you brought it up. But the coaching staff is trying to win games this year, and they should. That's Howie's job, and then you start over next year. And I project that Howie is projecting, look, he's going to sign TJ Edwards, Kaiser is going to probably walk, and Nakobe Dean's going to be a starter. That would be my guess at this point, but that's for next year. You bring up Frank getting fired, very close to Nick Sirianni, very close to Shane Steichen, to be honest. Kevin Patullo, a lot of guys Frank is very close with. And obviously, one of the reasons Nick is here is because of Frank Reich and his recommendation. And the Eagles have tremendous respect for Frank Reich as well. Now, you bring up Vic Fangio as well. I don't know where this started, but I got so many make Reich a consultant like Fangio. So I'm going to say it again directly into the camera. Vic Fangio is not a consultant for the Philadelphia Eagles. No matter how many times fans say it, he is not a consultant. I don't know where that started. He was at training camp for a few days. He and Jonathan Gannon now have developed a relationship. But really, JG started using his scheme because his best friend, Brandon Staley, used it. And he got more of the ideas from Brandon Staley. Anyway, 8-0, Mike Gill. Why are people wanting to upset the apple cart? Not that Frank would want to come here. Frank's under contract through 2026, so that moron in Indianapolis has got to pay him anyway. Now, Nick can text him anytime he wants anyway, and he's certainly going to answer him. Why do they want to upset the apple cart?
I feel like we've gone through, John, you and I have done segments together for years. And you always laugh when I ask you about the big name free agent who's now on the street that the other team didn't want. There's that, while Philadelphia has the love affair with the underdog, they also always yearn for the big name free agent or the guy they're familiar with. The reunion is always something we yearn for. So I think Frank being a part of that Super Bowl team has that. Well, he helped us win John, how many times did we have the conversations during the 2019 season, I guess it was, when Frank went to Indianapolis and the Eagles were struggling? Well, it had to be because Reich was calling all the plays. Peterson's a complete idiot. This was all Frank Reich. So there is this feeling of, hey, this guy helped us win a Super Bowl. If he's available, he's like enter free agent. A first-round pick gets released from the Raiders 9 times, and Eagles fans want all 9 of them. Yeah. None of them can play, but because they got drafted in the first round, there's a perception of they might be good. And I think that's where the Reich and Fangio thing is. This guy was a head coach somewhere. He's got to be better than John Gannon because we don't like John Gannon. Frank Reich, he called all the plays the year we won the Super Bowl, allegedly not. Who knows? But he was on that team, so we have to get him on this team. Probably somewhere in there is what I would say is the reason.
And Eagle fans have every right to say, let's keep our eye out for Gannon. Bring him in tomorrow? That's dumb. Yeah, you're 8-0. You're not bringing him in tomorrow. Everything is in place, but we'll see what happens. There
is a weird dynamic, though, John, as you mentioned, that Gannon could be a head coach, and it's probably better than 50-50. That if you like somebody to take over for him because you're anticipating him leaving, how do you keep that guy within a cell phone's call to say, hey, you might be the next guy, so keep coming to practice and show. It's like someone trying to get into our business. Hey, keep coming into the studio, keep showing your face. One of these days, one of the board ops is going to show up, and you're going to get your opportunity.
Trust me, Vic doesn't have to show his face. The whole stinking league's running his defense. He will have his pick of jobs. My assumption with Big Fangio is first he wants to see if somebody will give him another head coaching job. So he wants to feel that out. If not, and I don't think he will, then he'll have anybody will bring him in. If they, and I shouldn't say anybody, because if the Eagles are, finish 14-3, whatever, win the Super Bowl, for whatever reason, Jonathan Gannon doesn't get a head coaching job. He's not losing his job as defensive coordinator, but you get my point. He'll have the pick of the litter of jobs. And look, he's somewhat local. He's a Phillies fan. He's got, I think that's where it all comes from, to be honest. Who knows? Maybe he will become. The Eagles have tremendous respect for him. The whole league has tremendous respect for him. My point is this coaching staff is pretty good. I had my questions when they hired Nick Sirianni. Unlike everybody else, I didn't know that much about Nick Sirianni, and I looked at his original coaching staff and I said the same thing everybody else said. Where's the experience? Where is it? And Nick has brought up a good point over the years, Mike, in that that sounding board can come in many different ways. And since he's gotten this job, he's been able to text Frank Reich and ask for advice. Mike McCoy, who's now down with Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. You have all these guys. You have all these relationships. What's the difference if you have a sounding board inside the building versus outside the building? And I think Nick has proven that's the case.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is, and look, all of these things I think are dependent on the whole room. Joe Girardi wins a World Series. He obviously is equipped to do it.
Yeah.
But that group of 25 guys were the right 25 guys for him. He comes to Philadelphia, and just because he won a World Series with the Yankees, now all of a sudden, is he an idiot? No. But the dynamic of this Phillies team was not the right personalities for what he did well. Doesn't mean Joe Girardi's a fool. Just means not good for this team. Doc Rivers wins a championship in Boston. It doesn't mean he can't coach or is an idiot, but maybe the makeup of the personalities around him are not allowing him to get the best out of the guys he has right now. I think Nick Sirianni has a dynamic where they have found the right players for what Nick does well. You take Nick's staff and put them someplace else, maybe they're not having the same type of success.
No. Anybody would have this success.
That's true.
By the way, I think that's one of Nick Sirianni's strengths that you mentioned, John. Something that the previous coach, and I know it's sacrilegious to question him in any way because he delivered the Super Bowl, Doug Peterson never got. Relationships around the league are a good thing. Being able to tap into another source somewhere else, it's a good thing. Doug didn't care. Doug didn't really worry about that.
And one of the things I was discussing yesterday is I'm watching even like Dusty Baker, who just wins the World Series. He just got an extension. And I'm thinking, even in winning, we're in this world where we want new all the time. Like, what's the shelf life on even a successful coach if they don't win the championship, or even do? Because we as a society want something new. Like, we want to scroll to the next video as fast as possible. Even if that video gives us joy and we liked it, as soon as we watch it, we're done. We want to go to the next one. And it's like, how long can you keep coaching the same way with the same group of players until people find that to be monotonous? Like, I feel like the Sixers are in that boat right now where it's like Tobias Harris again, Joel Embiid again, Shake Milton again, Doc Rivers again. And even though they're a good group and they have a chance to win a title, it's just that you're bored of that group. And like, how long does that happen for Nick Sirianni and this group of Eagles? Right now,
everybody has a shelf life. I mean, the goal is to get it as long as Andy Reid, right? Or somebody like that, obviously Bill Belichick, but everybody has a shelf life. And Nick, I can tell you already, anytime he says dog mentality, I tune out. I'm not listening. When you have the same messaging over, and he admits it, and that's why he says the veteran leadership of this team is so important. And I would add Jalen Hurts on top of that as a younger veteran. Why the leadership is so important, because he can say something, but if it's coming from Kelsey or BG or Bletch or Jalen, it has a different impact, and everybody seems to be following along. But it all meshes together. But one thing, this team is so good right now. If you want to be really negative, it's all downhill. You can't go up from perfect.
Well,
so people are going to start questioning.
9-0 is better than 8-0, and 10-0 is better than 9-0. So you can still continue to go up, John.
No, in this season, Jody. But I'm saying, even if you have the perfect season, the first perfect season since the 72 Miami Dolphins, I'm talking about next year. It ain't happening again. And even if it does happen again, by the end, it's not going to happen continuously on a loop. No,
and then there's the notion of, well, is a loss good for your team? If so, when does that loss occur? That's the right spot for them to learn from the loss or take a little. Okay, we can't put our foot on in this sports world that we're in now. You can't play all 162 with pedal to the metal. You can't play all 82 with pedal to the metal. You can't play all 17 with pedal to the metal. Regular seasons have become roller coasters of ebb and flows of when to take your foot off the gas, when to put it back on the gas. So I think that's a dynamic that the Eagles are going to have to start dealing with.
All right, I'm going to throw this at both you guys because I want to hear, because Buffalo is having an issue with Josh Allen. Evidently, he's got a sprained elbow. It might be a UCL injury.
Yeah, he's Bryce Harper. He's DHing.
Yeah. They might
can't DH at QB.
Right. They might have, people say they have a big game this week because they're playing Minnesota, who's 7-1. No, it's not. For them, it's not a big game compared to the speed. It's an outside of conference game. If you want to lose a game in the NFL, that's the game you want to lose. They have to think about long term as a potential Super Bowl contender. But that's That's media thinking. That's fan thinking. That's not football thinking. If he's clear,
I'll give you
he's
the
clear.
football aspect of it, John. There are teams that they're going to be able to beat the rest of their season just by going out there and playing. They might not be able to do that with Minnesota tomorrow or on Sunday. And oh, by the way, if they lose to Minnesota, all of a sudden they're in second place. If the Dolphins win this Sunday, they're in second place in their division.
But what I'm asking you, I'm not asking you about the strategy. If he's cleared, he's going to play. That's how football teams think about it. It doesn't matter. If the Eagles are going to try to win every game. So to Mike's point of, you know, do you rest players? Do you massage players? Do you try to get them through this? Try to get them through that? I've asked Nick Sirianni that 7 different ways this Sunday. He says the same thing. If they're cleared, they're cleared. There's no in between. If they're cleared, they're cleared. I think that's fan/media thinking when we say, and that's why I bring up Josh Allen, because he's such a high-profile player. Well, should the Bulls consider, because the Vikings are no, they're not going to consider. They're not going to say, oh, the Vikings are out of conference. They're not going to consider, oh, we have an AFC game is more important. If he's cleared, he's cleared. So the Eagles, from an Eagles perspective.
If Nick Sirianni said that to me, I'd go, timeout Philadelphia. You played the JV against Dallas last year in the last game. They were all cleared. They were all capable of playing.
They had COVID.
They're your best players. They should be out there on the field. Stop it, Coach. Don't try and say that with a straight face. You have to take the situation into consideration.
I'll tell you why I can say that with a straight face, Jody. Because that was an organizational decision. Read that as, if we're up to Nick Sirianni, they're cleared, they're cleared. That's why I can say it with a straight face.
Well, and I feel like the game against Dallas is obviously a game that win or lose, there was no repercussion in the game, as opposed to a week 9, 10, 11 game where that could have impact on your seeding down the line. You know, Philadelphia is going to be in an interesting spot with this whole situation. If by, say, let me throw a date out, Christmas Eve when they play Dallas, what if they're 2 or 3 games ahead of Dallas at that point? Then what do you do? Are you cleared? Or are you saying, you know what?
Is Nick Sirianni clearing, or is Howie Roseman clearing?
Howie Roseman. And they have different jobs.
Decision as to who's cleared.
And sometimes you got to protect the coach from himself. And, you know, GM has a different job than head coach. He has a different job. And that's a different conversation. But I'm just saying that's how Nick Sirianni can say it with a straight face. When Buffalo makes that decision, you know, it'll be up to the doctors. If he's healthy, enough, if he's clear, he's going to play.
I know I'm being a jackhole here, but sorry, since you took me down this road. Why do you even ask Nick Sirianni questions? Why don't you just go to the source, Howie Roseman? If he's making the decision on who's cleared, who's not cleared, and who's playing, who's not playing, why are you asking the coach any questions?
He's the only one available.
Yeah, he's the only, you know, Howie doesn't talk every day, but I have asked Howie that type of question. And obviously the Eagles are big on, you always get the collaboration answer.
Oh, yeah.
Collaboration, but you get it from other avenues.
Yeah.
And look, Howie's in charge, and he should be. That's
the original conversation that we started this at was about the Eagles being 8-0 and their weaknesses. And I said, apparently they haven't been pushed. Are there games on this schedule that they could win that will change anybody's opinion of who they are?
Nope.
No.
If it's not Buffalo and Kansas City, I don't think it matters.
Right.
Which is kind of ludicrous, but that's the way most people look at it at this stage.
Yeah, and I'm at the point where, Mike, and I said this on your show as well, the Eagles, it's all about the quarterback. It's amazing to me because Buffalo has Josh Allen and Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is better than those 2 quarterbacks, because I do think those 2 quarterbacks are better than Jalen Hurts. But I think there's this narrative that I hear it all the time with Buffalo. Buffalo's more talented than the Eagles. I looked at their team. No, they're not. 2 through 52. No stinking way. The Eagles have more difference makers than the Bills. Same thing with Kansas City. It's a flawed, and it all stems from the quarterback and people not believing in the quarterback in Philadelphia, which is, I don't know how you change that.
Right. And well, to put it in perspective for the people who are, not, right now, Aaron Rodgers is better than Jalen Hurts is, but that team's just not very good. It's very dependent on the quarterback, but it's not all dependent on the quarterback. Yeah. The Green Bay Packers are not a good football team. The defending Super Bowl champions, Matthew Stafford, they're not a good football team. They stink. I don't know what Tampa Bay is. I don't think they're very good at this point. Of those three, they probably can turn it around. The San Francisco 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo is not great, but I asked people yesterday, give me a team in this league that is a good team that you would be impressed. And everybody's saying 49ers. Well, their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not all that great either. So I think the people who are saying, well, I don't believe in the Eagles because of the quarterback. Well, there's a lot of teams in this league that the quarterback's not the reason why they're in the position they're at, or there's better quarterbacks than Hurts whose teams are lesser than the Eagles are right now. So take that for what you will on how what you believe or don't believe.
If Jody knows, I mean, I would be in that category with San Francisco. I think that team is tremendously talented. In the AFC, I think Tennessee is tremendously talented. I think people don't realize because of the quarterback situation of how good that team is. And on a given day, given game, and that's the game I'm looking forward to. That's
They're a better version of the Giants, Tennessee.
Yeah. December 4th, I believe, is when they come here. That is the game that is interesting to me. I want to see how that game unfolds.
And you better hope that Jordan Davis is back by that game, because Derrick Henry could come in here and go for $175, which would put the Eagles in a tough spot. All right, we haven't mentioned once the Commanders of Washington coming to town with Taylor Heineke on Monday nights. Level of fear, Mike Gill. Are you laughing when I use the word fear to describe your emotion between the Eagles and Commanders? Do you give them the slightest bit of respect? Are you actually a little bit nervous? How do you see the Commanders and the Eagles matching up?
Yeah, I mean, anytime, I feel like the Commanders are always a pain in the ass. Like it's a team that in the division, there's this Eagles Cowboys, Eagles Giants. The Commanders are always the third of the group, but they always seem to be a pain. Maybe not in the recent past, but yeah, this team's, played a lot better under Taylor Heineke. Their defense has been their calling card over the last couple of years. We thought they were really, there was a time when I said, man, this defense in this division is going to be a pain for the next couple of years. It hasn't gotten to that level, but they've got some really, really talented players on that defensive side of the ball. Their offense always seems to have, a couple of guys that give you some problems that are those kind of scat guys. They got Gibson, who always seems to be a problem.
Curtis Samuel.
These slot guys that are a problem. This could be, now the game's in Philly, that changes the dynamic. I was going to say, this could be kind of your Bills Jets. And I don't think the Commanders are as good as the Jets, but they've got some talent on that defensive side of the ball, much like the Jets do. The Jets are very good on defense. They're limited at quarterback. The Jets are. That kid stinks, by the way, Jody. He's not the guy. Wilson stinks. But
I don't know if I would not go stinks, but surely not meritorious of the number 2 pick in the draft. That's for damn sure.
Correct. Well, see, that's the thing. He could be good, but because he was the number 2 pick in the draft, he will never get credit for being as good as possibly that he is.
Correct.
For the team. But yeah, I think the Commanders are, they last week played a Vikings team, which that's another interesting story. They're 7-1. The Eagles beat them, but yet the Eagles haven't beaten anybody. Well, I don't believe in the Vikings. I actually had someone tell me yesterday that the Eagles beat the Vikings, but you shouldn't be impressed because Kirk Cousins was playing at night, and that's why that win didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. But the Commanders should have won that game against a tough Vikings team last week. So do I think the Eagles are in trouble? Yeah, because of the Bills. You could stub your toe at any time, especially in the division against a team that can play defense.
Yeah. At Mike Gill Show, ESPN 97.3 South Jersey, 2 to 6, drive time every day. You'll hear me on Mike's show later in the day. little reciprocation, Jody McDonald. I'll leave it there with you. That defensive front in Washington, I think people do not realize. But you and I have been talking because I used to cover the Vikings. Everybody knows that back years ago. They've had a bad offensive line for years and years and years.
Yep.
No longer. They got a good offensive line. Christian Darrisaw might be the best left tackle in football. That's how much he's developed. Ezra Cleveland, Brian O'Neill's one of the best right tackles. Garrett Bradbury's finally playing like a first-round pick at center. It took him a long time. All of a sudden, their offensive line is good.
Yeah.
And Washington beat the you-know-what out of that very good, not Darrisaw, but everybody else. It is good, that offensive line, which my roundabout point is that Washington defensive line is legit.
Very
Nick
good.
Sirianni talked about it during the first game. He couldn't stop talking about how good they were. And, oh, by the way, Chase Young's going to be back. Any worry about that Washington front?
No, yes, big time. And, I have said over the years, we're so enamored in this fantasy football world. Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen. Now they have Hawkinson. I never believed in that team because their line has been a complete disaster. That team's offensive line is solid now. It's not the best, but they are not losing games now because they can't block. That's why they're 7-1. They would lose some of these games before because why? Cousins gets sacked. He throws a big pick. He's now not getting that sack, and he's getting the ball to playmakers, and that's why that team is better. But yes, you have the one area is their defensive front is very good. Now, this is that mano-a-mano matchup. That's the strength of your team is the offensive line against them. So this is a good test, and that's why I think Mailata's had some rough goes at it here the last couple of weeks.
He's not healthy. People don't realize he's not healthy.
So is there a game or a play where it's close and there's a sack fumble, something stupid like that happens? So, yeah, the fact that they have the ability to get pressure on you always makes the game a somewhat concern.
All right, last thing for me, Mike, and you mentioned Christmas Eve and the possibility that the Eagles may be up by enough then that they don't have to sweat. Once again, Coach / Howie Roseman will dictate that the Eagles play backup players all over the line. We'll see if we get there. And I'm judging this by the fact that yesterday Jerry Jones walked down the middle of the road, which he almost never does, about Odell Beckham Jr. He didn't dismiss. He didn't say something that made you believe it's going to happen. He walked right down that fine line road, which is not Jerry's repertoire. That tells me they're onto something. When Odell Beckham, not if, when Odell Beckham Jr. signs with the Cowboys, is that something that will hurt the Eagles, help the Eagles? Because Jerry's been known to sign guys just because of their name and they don't necessarily get the job done. What would you think about OBJ to the Cowboys for the last quarter of the season?
I don't know that makes a huge difference for me, honestly. I think Odell is now more of in a role player spot where, I was never a big Odell guy. He made that one-handed catch, and we all went nuts. He had a great couple seasons in New York, but really since he's left the Giants, he has not been an impactful player.
Super Bowl last year.
He did. No, but he had more of a role on that team, more so than being the guy on that team. So I think he slides into the Cowboys and becomes a role player. I think the Eagles are equipped to handle that portion. I mean, their secondary is very good. And I don't think Odell Beckham is this number 1A game-breaking wide receiver anymore. So while I think he would add to their regular season ability, my big problem with the Cowboys, and you add him, I think that helps them out. I don't think it's huge for them. My bigger problem for them is most likely they're going to be a wild card team and have to play on the road. Can their defense stop the run 3 straight weeks on the road? They're a smaller defense up front. I know they traded for Hankinson, but I just wonder if that defense will wear down after playing on the road for a couple straight weeks come playoff time. Look, they gave up 26 points. People forget to the Eagles. They had Cooper Rush. Your defense had a chance to keep you in that game with a lesser quarterback, and they couldn't do it. That's what you're going to get come playoff time, Dallas fans, is can they go up against a good team for 3 straight weeks and stop a team that can run on you. So I think adding a guy like Odell, it might help them a little bit. But it's going to come down, can their defense get stops?
I think your general read on Beckham is on point. The only reason why it would scare me a little bit is, that's a legit need. That's not like adding to an already good.
That's what I would say. He's better than what they have. So, yeah, I mean, it's not what he
Their
wants.
other wide receiver spot is not straight on his team.
They played for a lot of this year without Gallup. I mean, he's coming back from the injury. Let's see where he is a couple of weeks from now. But yeah, adding another receiver to that mix, it's definitely something that they should be taking a look at. There's no question about it. I just don't think he's that game-breaking guy that scares you anymore. He's more of a role
nobody
guy.
knows how he's going to look coming off an ACL tear either. So
right,
you got to see how healthy he is.
And by the way, Gallup's been back for 5 games now, and he doesn't have 150 yards catching just yet. So
coming off an ACL tear, not the same guy.
True.
Odell's doing the same thing. So the assumption he's just going to show up and be OBJ from New York. It's probably a bad assumption.
Doesn't necessarily work that way. Agreed. All right, Mike Gill, always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks much. We will talk to you again next Wednesday.
All right, guys. See ya.
Thanks,
Mike Gill, the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN down the shore. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. Mark Farzetta. We haven't had Farzetta. The last time Farzy was on, I was absent. Shame on me. So I haven't talked to Farzy in a dog's age. Johnny Mac has a couple of months
every week. Ago. Every week on the JAKIB Media pregame show, Mark Farzetta and Johnny Mac.
So you get a chance. I haven't talked to Farzy in forever. Looking forward to it. Coming back here on the Birds 365. I do want to get, and I know we're Eagle-centric, but there's one national story, and I'll tie it into the Eagles with the quarterback position of the Indianapolis Colts. Man, are the Colts getting killed for their hiring of Jeff Saturday. And I
should be no surprise.
I like outside the box thinking, and I know this goes way, way, way outside the box, it isn't the biggest affront to the National Football League the way some guys are painting it.
No,
it really is. Now they're pushing me to the point of actually maybe having to root for the Colts.
I'm not. I hear what you're saying. I think a lot of people don't understand. Like there's this, and rightfully so, and we'll talk about it after the break. But obviously, lack of minority hirings, everybody wants to go in that direction. Whoever your favorite minority candidate is, Eric Bieniemy's not leaving the Chiefs in season. Brian Flores isn't leaving the Steelers in season.
Right.
This is an interim coach. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal.
It is. People are massively overreacting to this. We'll give you our reaction when we come back. Mac and Mac Birds 365.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Fall Car Fest, and Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, says yes, you can. Jeff says yes, you can choose from over 1,000 vehicles in stock with no wait. Yes, you can still get low prices, leases, and big discounts. Yes, you can still get low interest financing. And Jeff always says yes, you can have a real deal buying experience without the hassle. When the other dealers say no, you can't, Jeff says yes, you can. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Jeep Adventure Days.
My wife was in an accident that changed our lives forever. She was in rehabilitation for years. She had to learn to walk again. She couldn't take care of herself. We couldn't afford a nurse. We were running out of options. One conversation with Pondley Hockey changed everything. They understood what we were going through and immediately helped us navigate the legal process. We can't thank them enough.
Pond Hockey. Tell us your story.
The faces you know, the team you trust. The Delaware Valley's leading news program, Action News.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Guys, here on Bird 365. John McMullen and Jody McDonald hanging with you on a Wednesday, an undefeated Wednesday, the 401st. I did not mention this yesterday.
Oh, man.
Yes, we
wow,
got our
400
under our belt. We are now at 401, Johnny Mac. So
nice.
Congrats
nice.
on that. And Mark Farzetta is going to join us coming up in just a couple of minutes. The Farzy Show and JAKIB Media Eagles pregame show. The whole hiring of Jeff Saturday, I really have been surprised by NFL Network, ESPN, a lot of national guys, national writers, and the like. That somehow the owner of the Colts has besmirched the National Football League. That it is beyond comprehension that he could hire someone who is an all-time organizational great, who is a well-respected ESPN analyst, but because he's never had a whistle around his neck and never actually run a practice, he cannot be given the responsibility of being a head coach in the National Football League, that they are turning up their nose and disrespecting all the other hardworking coaches that have put in time and effort in the National Football League. Even if you look at the Indianapolis Colts staff, which it's an okay staff, I saw all the guys that are on it, but no one jumped out at me as like, oh my God, well, of course he's the choice. You
Gus Bradley's there. Gus Bradley, John Fox, I think, is there. I'm with you on that. I mean, Jody, the only thing I will say, I'm surprised you're surprised because I knew this was coming. I mean, I knew this was coming.
Not to the level that it's come, John.
Ideologues are ideologues, man. They take advantage of situations and they, they're good. When the GPS is already programmed, you're going to get there. You're going to get there no matter what happens. You're going to get there. And there's certain people with the GPS already programmed, and they're going to get there no matter what happens. Now, if you want to criticize Jim Irsay for being a nut job, for doing things out of the box, I'll agree with that. It's unconventional. I'll agree with that. But, to not understand the rules of the situation, to not realize that certain minority coaches couldn't come, even if Jim Irsay wanted to consider them at this time of year. That's not how the league works. That's not how the league does business. So if you want to go down that route, you should at least focus on the minority people on the staff in Indy. Right. That's who you should focus on, number one, if that's the way you want to go. At least you have more of a standing. But as far as, and I brought this up with Josh McCown in Houston as well, I kind of respect the courage of your convictions. Now, on the other hand, it could be that Jim Irsay, who knows? He might have talked to Gus Bradley, for instance, and said, and Gus doesn't want those 8 losses. Gus wants to be a head coach again someday. You really want 8 losses on your resume because you got to play Sam Ehlinger? That's not going to make you look good. Maybe he doesn't want it. Maybe other coaches on that staff, maybe they didn't want it. maybe Jeff Saturday's doing them a solid, going in and taking the bullets, because that team's going to be really bad if they continue to go down the route they're going down. There's a whole host of things, but as far as the criticism, oh yeah, I knew that was coming. I know, because look, people are disingenuous. I mean, it's just we just went through election day. My PSA to everybody who's an ideologue, either side, my PSA was, your candidate sucks too. Doesn't matter. Look in the mirror. Your candidate sucks too. Your life is the same today as it was yesterday. But ideologues are ideologues.
We'll only know that over time. But here's, again, I apologize if I'm repeating myself. If you want to second guess the hire, you've got every right. I understand you're hiring a guy who's never been a coach before. But the level that they took to the disrespect he's showing every other coach on the face of the planet, because if you reach out for anyone else outside the organization, they're not available. Like John said, you think the Pittsburgh Steelers just going to go, all right, yeah, here, take Flores in the middle of our season. Take an important member of our coaching staff and go ahead and have him. They just completely disregard that. And the whole "you can only coach if you've coached before" mantra is ridiculous.
Well, one of the things that when I used to cover the NBA, I used to bring it up all the time. Derek Fisher, I believe, was the first who went directly from the court to being a head coach. And there was a lot of the same stuff in the NBA. Not as much, but a lot of the same stuff. Like, how could you do that? How could you hire somebody with no experience? And I'm like, the 22 years he played the game wasn't experience? I mean, I even got that with Doug Peterson, who spent years as an assistant coach. And, he went straight from high school to whatever job Andy Reid gave him originally. I forget at this point. And people were saying, well, how could that be? Like, the 14 years he spent behind Brett Favre and Dan Marino didn't help him out. I would say, when Peyton Manning was playing, and God bless Tom Moore, he's one of my favorite people in this league. Get the hell out of the way. I think the ego is the problem with coaching. If you're lucky enough to get a Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning, and this has always been my biggest criticism of Chip Kelly. He didn't want that type of quarterback. Like, he just wanted somebody to do what he told him to do. I think that's bad. If you're lucky enough to get a Peyton Manning, get the hell out of the way. So if I'm saying that, and because Peyton's name was brought up a little bit, Peyton Manning can't coach in the NFL? Maybe he can't, because maybe he can't manage personalities. There's other things to do with it. But as far as scheme, what everybody thinks is so important, there's nobody who knows more about offensive football than Peyton Manning in this era.
Let me ask you a question. Thank you for helping me make my point. If the announcement had come down that Peyton Manning was the new coach of the Indianapolis Colts, do you think it would have been near as critiqued or criticized or lambasted the way Jeff Saturday was? Because you know what those two guys have in common? In addition to being former teammates, neither one of them has a day of coaching experience on any kind of high level. Yeah. But if it were Peyton Manning, because he's a quarterback, because he's a popular guy, they would have been, that's outside the box thinking. I don't think any of those ideologues that you referenced would be going quite as harshly after Irsay if he hired Peyton Manning, but it would be basically the same exact type of hire.
I do think it would have been less, but I think would have been still significant, because there would have been less, because people can at least see. Same thing with Josh McCown as a quarterback. In a lot of ways, Josh McCown is probably more equipped even than Peyton Manning, because he played 17 years in so many different offenses, and he wasn't a good player. He was just learning offense after offense after offense from a schematic standpoint. And there was plenty of criticism with Josh McCown, and so much so that Houston had to back off. I think there would have been a lot of criticism, but not as much with Peyton Manning over Jeff Saturday. But yeah, it's ironic because they're teammates. That viral video, that's one of my favorite videos. I don't know if you saw it, but with Peyton Manning arguing with Jeff Saturday on the sidelines, it's a kind of a famous clip, and everybody was putting it up there. And, Saturday saying, we got to run the ball. And Peyton's like, just, we're going to run the ball. Just block. If I call a pass, just block. It's a great viral clip, but and no Tom Moore to be seen, because guess what? He was smart enough to get the hell out of the way.
Agree on all fronts on that one, but I'm telling you, John, I'm tempted. Now, when it comes up next week, I'm not going to root for the Colts over the Eagles, but this week, I'm absolutely rooting for the Colts because of the BS questioning of the hire by Mr. Irsay. And oh, by the way, here's how I want the game to go. And who did it play this week? I don't have the schedule in front of me. You know off the top of your head who the Colts play? Oh, Raiders, because Jeff Saturday just said on ESPN, oh, and the Raiders are terrible. Now he's got a coach against them this week, which is kind of ironic. I hope
real quick, because I want to get Tone, our producer. He typed in, are we equating coaching to playing? I'm not equating coaching to playing when I talk about people like Derek Fisher, but I think it's silly to not look at experience playing the game as valuable to becoming a potential coach. Now, did Derek Fisher have to go coach in high school and then college and then get to the pros, or is that the way it has to be done in the NFL? That's the way it has to be done because people have always said that's the way it has to be done. If you are, as Nick Sirianni says, if you have a high football IQ and you can connect with people, why the hell can't you coach?
Right. I agree. Here's the way I'm hoping the Colts game goes Saturday. They beat the Raiders 11-6 because their defense comes up big and they get a win. So they're actually kind of hanging in that division and are going to be motivated to get the win the week after. The good old Sam Ellinger throws for 98 yards, just under 100 rather than just over 100. And here comes Nicky Six the week after against the Eagles.
You're obsessed with this Nick Foles.
Nick Foles going to be starting against. Oh, you know why I want it, John. Because of the Folesian Society who put him on a pedestal. And I know he's got his own pedestal down at the stadium. Yes, I know the statue that you're referring to, but the Eagles moved on when they should have moved on. He is what he is. He's a great off-the-bench quarterback. He's not a guy you're handing the franchise over to for the next 5 years. I do, yeah. I'm rooting for the narrative of Nick Foles against the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't think the Colts want to win, so I think they're firmly entrenched with Sam Ellinger as the quarterback.
So are you telling me and who'd they hire to be the play caller?
Boy, good question. I forget his name already.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think they want to win
this week, up 11. What I say the score is going to be up 11-6, 4th and 4 from their own 13-yard line. They're going to go for it because they don't want to win the game.
Well, the Raiders, they're doing everything they can. They're trying to win, but they're figuring out ways to lose every week.
How far are the Colts willing to go to try and lose? Is my question to you, since you're suggesting they're not trying to win.
They already Parks Frazier, by the way, is the coach's name.
Parks Frazier, 4th and 4 from his own 13.
Yeah,
he's calling a quarterback draw.
That's a good name, by the way, Parks Frazier. But Jim Irsay's already done this before. He was the suck for luck. This was, they've tanked. I assumed 24 hours after they fired Frank Reich, they would hire Sam Hinkie as their GM, but Chris Ballard remains in position. But they're clearly tanking. And they got some work to do because there's a lot of teams ahead of them in those standings, the tanking standings.
I say they do a 180, and here comes Nick Foles next week against the Eagles. Watch out. All right, Mark Farzetti's in the green room. He's ready to join us from the Farzi Show and the JAKIB Sports Eagle pregame show. Mark Farzetta is next here on Birds 365.
It's a fall car fest, and Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, says, yes, you can. Jeff says, yes, you can choose from over 1,000 vehicles in stock with no wait. Yes, you can still get low prices, leases, and big discounts. Yes, you can still get low interest financing. And Jeff always says, yes, you can have a real deal buying experience without the hassle. When the other dealers say, no, you can't, Jeff says, yes, you can. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Jeep Adventure Days.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
At Salus University, our graduates are among the most highly trained in their profession because of our unique emphasis on research, interprofessional collaboration, and early clinical exposure. Learn more about our programs at salus.edu.
Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365 with Mac and Mac. That would be McMullen and McDonald. And we are joined by Mark, Mac and Mark, or Mark, Mac and Mac, whatever you want to put it together. We appreciate him jumping in with us. Mark Farzetta here on Birds 365. Farzi, I do like your studio. I got to give you that. We love our ocean drop back, but your studio is pretty cool.
I'm actually in my kitchen. My wife hates this, but it's okay. No, it's some fake brick. Imagine what some fake brick can do.
We used to have fake brick way back at the start of the show, Jody. We had the fake bricks.
Before we went down the ocean, we had fake brick.
Yeah, we had fake brick.
Whatever pays the bills.
Exactly. The Barzy Show. So you see it right there. So make sure to listen to Mark there every Monday through Friday. But here we're lucky enough to have him on Birds 365. You know, I talk about this a lot with Jody, and I want to get your thoughts because you've been doing this for a long time, and you know Philadelphia fans better than most, Mark. Philadelphia has this underdog mentality. We know that that the Eagles are no longer underdogs. Why can't people admit that to themselves? They're going to be favorite unless something drastic happens in every game for the rest of this season. They are the best team in football. Why is everybody scared of that other shoe dropping, Mark Farzetta?
I don't know, and it drives me crazy when I hear a lot of the national interviews talk about in a roundabout way. Like after they beat the Texans on Thursday night, there's Tony Gonzalez asking him on Prime in a roundabout way. So when do you guys think you're going to lose. Like basically every national media outlet is now starting to, well, yeah, they're doing well, but when do you think they lose? So immediately they go to the negative, which is just astonishing to me. I know it makes for, I guess, a good conversation, but the Eagles in their minds it's weird. The Eagles aren't 8-0 in their mind, which is what I think helps play into that underdog mentality that they still try to possess. They're 1-0 every week. Like right now, they're sitting at 0-0. They want to go 1-0 coming up Monday night against the Washington Commanders. And I know that sounds like it's almost cliche or coach speak or whatever, but this Eagles team, from even right before when the season started, Jason Kelce laid out the blueprint of, hey, look, I don't want to get comfortable. The coach shouldn't be comfortable. None of us should be comfortable. The minute we're comfortable is the minute when we start making mistakes. So he wants to look at every win they have throughout the course of the season as if it was a loss and look at all the things that they didn't do right. And what has become the mantra of this team is the pursuit of perfection. And that's not in terms of a perfect record. That's in terms of playing the perfect game. And as we all know, because you guys have certainly been watching this stuff and covering this stuff for a long time as well, man, when it comes to sports, you never play that perfect game. So I think it's a brilliant thing from Jason Kelce, the team leaders, Nick Sirianni, and even Jonathan Gannon to really preach that pursuit of perfection when it comes to finding that perfect game in their 17-game schedule.
All right, I'll half answer John's question with my next question. And I'm going to get myself in trouble here because I'm going to question a guy who can't be questioned in this town. If you'll remember at the beginning of the season, the Hall of Fame center of the Philadelphia Eagles did go off on a bit of a rant when he said, yeah, all you guys are talking us up. We only do well when you guys say we're going to stink. And you guys meaning the media and the fans. Well, yeah, some of us picked the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl, did like this team coming into the season and said they were going to be very good. And Jason Kelce didn't want to hear it from me or anybody else who was saying the Eagles were going to be real good. How are the Eagles this good, John, Mark? Because they can't do well when the media and or the fans think they're going to do well.
Well, I think it's a very simple answer as to why they're doing well. And it comes down to the two biggest questions that they had going into the season. All the pressure for both sides of the football. On offense, it was obviously on Jalen Hurts. On defense, it was on Jonathan Gannon. And you look at the way those two guys have responded to the adversity they faced in the offseason of, is Jonathan Gannon the right defense coordinator for this team? Is he aggressive enough or whatever? Howie Roseman in the Eagles front office said, hey, guess what, John? We're going to give you the pieces, and let's see how you do. They've only responded by being one of the best defenses statistically in the entire NFL this season. So I'd say that's a pretty nice jump from year one to year two for Jonathan Gannon. Year two of Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback is one of the greatest leaps we have ever seen of any athlete ever in the city of Philadelphia. From year one as a starter to year two as a starter, one of the greatest leaps ever. You're talking about right now, I believe, the front runner for the MVP award in the NFL. So going into the offseason, it was, is Jonathan Gannon really the right guy for the DC job? Is Jalen Hurts really the franchise quarterback going forward? And as of right now, I think Jalen Hurts has risen to the occasion and without question will be offered some sort of very lucrative deal, I think, before even the season lets out. And then Jonathan Gannon, of course, will get the offers for head coaching positions around the NFL.
Yeah, by rule, they have to wait till after the season when it comes to an extension. But, we're talking Kyler Murray. That's, that's where I start and say, okay, I need at least $1 more than Kyler Murray.
It's going to be more than $1 more, Johnny. I can tell you that right now.
That's where it starts. That's what I'm saying. That's where it starts. But, you bring up Jalen, Mark, because it was interesting. And I'm surprised. I don't know if you saw Dan Orlovsky yesterday mention anybody could be doing this. Justin Fields could be 8-0 with what the Eagles have on offense and with this coaching staff. The perfect situation for an NFL quarterback. I still get these seeping little, not all over. I don't want to blame everybody, but there's still a lot of people that don't believe in Jalen Hurts. This organization has been around since 1933. Nobody has ever played quarterback and won 11 consecutive regular season games. Why? It's time to believe, isn't it?
Well,
Jalen Hurts.
I think the answer, I think, lies in a very famous, very overused word right now, and that is hater. Hater. if you don't acknowledge the fact that Jalen Hurts is a front runner right now for the MVP award, at least in the top 2 or 3 at worst in the NFL, if you don't acknowledge the huge leap forward he has taken this year, you are a hater. Perfect record. Oh, who have they played? Well, they gave the team that only has 1 loss in the NFL their only loss. The Bills just lost to the Jets, and I know everyone's talking about what a sweet surprise the Jets are. They've lost their number 1 running back, who's having a great year to this point in Breece Hall, and they played without him last week against the Bills. The Bills still lost that game. I think you're just a hater if you don't acknowledge how much Jalen Hurts has improved and how great he has been just by any standard this year. You're talking about a guy who can't throw the football. He's the 2nd-rated passer in the NFL right now with his 107-plus passer rating. Only 2 has a higher passer rating than him right now. You look at what he's been able to do in his ground game. He has been very good on the ground still. He has, I think, picked his spots to run a lot more admirably and more knowledgeably this season. And I have seen him throw – the biggest thing for me with Jalen Hurts is when I see him throw that slant route, or when I see him throw to either A.J. Brown or Dallas Goedert across the middle of the field, and that is on point every time. It shows when someone goes into the offseason that it is possible that they put in the effort, they put in the time, they put into work, they talk to the right people, and when they come back, they can actually be very, very good and very much improved. And that's what Jalen Hurts has done this year. Every facet of the game, he's improved upon. And if you don't acknowledge it, you're just a big old hater when it comes to Jalen Hurts.
I like your stance. I mentioned this on Birds 365 on Monday. Just came across this stat. Eagles have played 8 games. Do the math. That's 480 minutes of football so far this year, 240 of which have been played in the second half of games. Mr. Farzetta, how many minutes in those 240 minutes have the Eagles actually trailed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, in the second half, I believe 0.
That would be 0.
Yeah.
They have not trailed at all in the second half of a football game in their 8-0 start. So if you want to question it, and yes, it's a reach to do so, is it a good thing if they actually are losing a game in the second half? It's kind of like the conversation we're having of, oh, it's good to lose a game. Get that loss out of the way. Get the monkey off your back, the pressure of it. Yeah. No, you play to win every single game. And you should play to be ahead every single game in the second half of every single game. But there is something to be earned and gleaned from dealing with something you haven't had to deal with yet. There's no chance they're trailing in the second half against the Commanders this Sunday, is there?
No, I don't think so. But I will say this, admittedly, one of my favorite things to do in life, and this might just show you how sad my life can be. One of my favorite things to do in life is on the pregame show, or whenever I've been on and shared a microphone with Seth Joyner, is to get him to crack a smile at certain points. And blitz. But I made the point last week about how the Eagles are in a situation where when they finally got down by 2 touchdowns against the Jaguars, we were all like, oh, good, they're trailing. You know what I mean? And I made that point and Seth started cracking up. And it's true to a point because I still thought they were going to win that game, but it was like, okay, good. Now they're going to cross off the idea of them. They have to come back in a game, and they did that. But what's really interesting about that stat, Jody, and I didn't even think about it, is that they haven't scored in the second half up until recently. I mean, you go into last week's game, and they had scored, 70% of their points in the second quarter. So they were barely scoring in the second half, and for them to still not trail in the second half is astonishing to me. That's a great stat. And I don't believe so much in the idea of getting a loss out of the way, because I think this Eagles team is a perfect example of it. They're not and the reason I don't think they want to hear about the record isn't because, like Jalen Hurts talked about being 2-4, 2-5 last year. No one wanted to talk about the record then, so why are we talking about it now? I don't think that really has anything to do with it. I think it more so has the idea of playing the right mind game. Because the minute you start thinking about 8-0 or 9-0 or a streak of any kind, the minute you start recognizing it for being bigger than what it actually is, that's when you get into trouble. And I think the Eagles do a great job, again, with their coaching staff, with their leaders on this team. I think they do a great job of boiling it down to its simplest form, which is we got one game this week. All we got to do is win one game this week. That's it. We got to improve from 0-0 to 1-0. And that's the way they've looked at it all year.
And it's kind of amazing that everybody's bought into it. But, how I look at it, Mark, is everybody makes the boxing analogy, right? You got to have that 15-round fight. They don't even fight 15 rounds anymore. But you got to be in that hard, and you got to prove yourself. Isn't it better to be Mike Tyson in his prime and just beat the crap out of people in the first 40 seconds and be done?
Yes.
You're not getting paid by the hour.
Yeah.
What do I care how I win?
Yeah.
What do I care? I don't got to go 15 rounds with these teams.
Mhm.
I don't get the mentality of, oh, you got to prove yourself in this atmosphere. I mean, I get that you're probably going to be in that game somewhere along the line, but it shouldn't be a goal of anyone. It should be the goal to get in there and Mike Tyson people.
Let's suck for a while, and then all of a sudden let's win it in the end, just to show people we can do it. No, I think again it comes down to its simplest form, and it's just win, baby. It's as simple as that. Just win. How are the Eagles going to have an undefeated season if they do? Well, they just win. How are they going to beat the Commander? Well, they're just going to win. I mean, as simple as that. I mean, I remember watching the 08 Phillies team and just thinking, wow, this team, they have one stud pitcher, and all of a sudden they're winning the World Series. What? How's that even happen? You know how? They just won. They found a way to win. And that's why after they beat the Cardinals, which a lot of people looked at and said, oh, man, they were lucky to escape that game with a win. Okay, fine. I'll be lucky, and I'll try to
don't use that word. Don't use luck. We got to talk about that. But,
okay.
I hear organizations don't like the use of that word. You can't be using that, Farzy.
All right. Well, how about this? They create their own good fortune. How about that? All right. And they capitalize on their opportunities for that.
That's like McMullen's randomness. Same friggin' thing.
Yeah.
Whatever. But they take advantage. The opportunity presents itself, and they take advantage of situations that present themselves and that they create on their own as well. But like that Cardinals game, for instance, they found a way to win. Good teams find ways to win. Bad teams obviously find ways to lose. The Eagles have done a hell of a job finding ways to win.
All right. Hypothetical for both you guys. We get to New Year's Day, and the Philadelphia Eagles are 15-0. They've just taken care of the Dallas Cowboys the week before on Christmas Eve, and they're playing the New Orleans Saints, which they have added incentive to try and stick a loss on at the end of the season. But they have already wrapped up home field advantage throughout the playoffs. No one can catch them in division, in conference, 15-0. Nobody's even close. Do we get the JV again this year like we did last year in the last week of the season against the Dallas Cowboys? Since John told me earlier in the show, Howie Roseman dictates this, not the actual coaching staff deciding what players play. The organization decides what will be the organizational decision that day about who plays against New Orleans.
I'm shutting them down. I mean, I don't care about going 17.
Are we going Gardner Minshew or Ian Book? How low? We're going
Gardner.
limbo here. How
Gardner.
low can you go?
I would go Gardner. Yeah, Gardner's gonna play. But yeah, I mean, the goal is the Super Bowl. The goal is not 17-0. And this team has been very cognizant of health and safety and keeping the players ready. So why would you change to chase a regular season mythical standard? Basically, that's how I would look at it. Mark?
It's hard to argue against it, John. It's a fine point, and I agree with a lot of your points. But if you have the chance to be the greatest football team ever in the history of football teams, I am going after it. If I'm the Eagles, hey, look, maybe they don't play the whole game. Maybe you play them a half and you just keep them warm, keep them fresh, keep them warm, keep them ready to go and all that stuff. Then, you go for the extra victories there. You try to be the perfect
by the way, Mark, I believe Nick Sirianni would take that path, but sometimes I think you got to save somebody from themselves.
Let me take it. Let me take it a step further on your line of thinking, Farzy. If you're going to use them some, not all, but some.
Yeah.
Do you start them?
Yes.
Or do you bring him in off the bench?
Oh, no.
No. I start him.
You might be able to put Gardner Minshew out there and wear the game. The Saints are pretty bad. You might be able to play your JV and still win the game with the JV. But do you start the JV and then go, Oh, shoot. First time we're losing in the second half. Get in there, Jalen.
I see your point, and I understand the logic behind it, the way thinking. But no, if you're my starter, you're my starter. You're going out there and you're starting. And I at least try to establish the tone, establish a nice lead by, maybe you do it at the end of the first quarter because, like you said, the Saints are pretty terrible. But yeah, I still go for it. I go for it all. And it's not just going for an undefeated season. Again, it's going, especially in an expanded season, the greatest football season and being the greatest football team ever. You have a chance to do that. I say you go for it.
Yeah. That is way out of the box, Jody, bringing in people to be closers.
Closers, yes. Jalen Hurts, the closer. Farzad is talking about the haters of Jalen Hurts. You can wipe some of those haters out coming off the bench.
Think about it,
doing something that nobody ever does.
You got to think about perception. Now, what if Jalen Hurts doesn't start? You put him in the second half, and then he gets hurt. Ooh,
yeah.
That would be a disaster.
Yeah.
But maybe you would do what Mark said, or start players and try to do the Mike Tyson and try to blow somebody out and then pull everybody. But yeah, any other way. And I don't think it's important. And that's where it comes into, which I think is a media more driven narrative, fan driven narrative, where you say you got to get that loss out of the way. This is the reason people say that. You got to get the loss out of the way so these questions don't pop up and say, why are you wasting your time trying to win a meaningless game in week 17, week 18, when you have bigger fish to fry?
Yeah, I don't understand why a coach, when teams have done really well in any sport, I don't understand why a coach just hasn't had a meeting and say, look, guys, whenever we get asked about a record or whenever we get asked about, like, even if it's Aaron Judge hitting home runs, whatever, hey, every time we get asked about it, here's the stock answer. And we would hate it as media people.
Yeah.
But hey, here's 3 sentences. And it's like the scene in Bull Durham, like, good Lord willing, things will work out. I'm just here to help the ball club. Like, write those down. And everyone say the same thing. That way the question doesn't even, it gets said and you just respond like this, like a Manchurian candidate, and you just move on from the question like that to block all the outside noise.
I like the reference. I
like that?
I love it.
Yes,
love it. The reference.
John McMullen is the kindest, warmest gentleman I've ever met in my entire life.
Now we know you're lying. All right, Farzy, I've been asking this some guys on the show all week, so I got to put it to you too. It's
what do you got?
Kind of moving away from 8-0. Howie Roseman might be doing some work this week. He did it last week, got the Eagles an extra pass rusher, didn't do anything right at the deadline. The deal wasn't out there to be had, so he didn't overstep. But now he's got a window here to potentially get a key Eagle guy or 2 or 3. I don't think it can be any more than 3 because they're at some point going to have to talk to Jalen Hurts after the season is over and done with, so he can't spend all the money. But he's been very good during his tenure as general manager of getting guys signed to contracts before they become free agents. The entire Eagle defense, or damn close to it, is going to be a free agent at the end of this year. This side of Darius Slay and Hassan Reddick, all the key guys are free agents. You got maybe one guy on offense that you would look to try and extend at this time. But again, Miles Sanders, you put in whatever perspective you think you should. If you had to, if you could get one guy out of all the Eagle free agents at a fair market value deal, you're not getting a Howie Roseman Philadelphia discount. You're not saying, Howie, go ahead and blow him out with an offer because we got to have him done and go ahead and overpay. Fair value deal. Who is the number one priority for you with all the Eagle free agents for Howie to get done?
Wow. The priority number one guy. I mean, I know Fletcher Cox is on that 1-year deal. Jordan Davis is obviously going to fill that role. Javon Hargrave's in that category. Man, oh my good. That's a really tough question, Jody Mack.
That's why they pay me the $11.75
the guy that jumps to mind, because the Eagles, I think, are always going to invest in the defensive line through the draft. I think that's always where they're going to. But the issue that they've had a problem with, they've addressed it in free agency, they've addressed it in trades, is the safety position. So I feel like through the draft, they're always going to take care of the defensive line. I feel like in the secondary, that's where they ignore some things. I think it comes down to James Bradbury, and I think it comes down to CD Deuce, who's only leading the league in interceptions right now with 5. So I think they go either Bradbury or CD Deuce, but to get off the fence on those two, I'll give you an answer. I think they're going to go with CD Deuce in that respect there, because I think he's so versatile a player. And I can eliminate the defensive line here just because of the draft stock. You also talk about TJ Edwards. You talk about Kazir White betting on himself with the 1-year deal here in Philly. So it's interesting. It's a great question. It's not far and away in my mind, CD Deuce. There's great arguments for everybody, but if I'm saying one guy, interceptions, turnovers have been a huge problem of this Eagles defense for years now. And CD Deuce is up there right now as the league leader in interceptions. So I got to go with him as a guy I want to see re-signed here in Philadelphia. And maybe you do still get a little bit of that Philly discount because he just loves us so much. Maybe that'll be part of it.
Well, I think you tapped into where I would go, Mark, and that's the Philly discount. I think I go the easiest route. I think TJ Edwards or Marcus Epps will be the easiest route.
Okay.
So I think they will probably be first. I think he's more difficult because he's playing so well. Mm-hmm. You know, Howie Roseman is known for, he's smart when it comes to finances, and you don't negotiate when leverage is highest for the opposition. And right now, Chauncey's, as you mentioned, and that's where I'll end it with you. The interceptions, the turnovers. We talked about that luck before I get to it. At Mark Barzetta. Follow Mark on Twitter. New episodes of the Barzy Show every Monday through Friday, 6 to 7, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook Live, everywhere you can watch streaming stuff. Mark, we brought this up with Nick Sirianni. We brought it up with Jonathan Gannon. They don't want to hear the term luck, but the Eagles are plus 15 in turnover ratio. The number 2 team in the NFL is plus 7. That's Baltimore. That is what they call way out of whack. There's a randomness to turnovers. That's the word I use. And Jody was joking about, because coaches don't want to hear luck, but they'll listen to random. Can plus 15 and 8 better than the number 2 team in the NFL? Can that continue? Or is there a regression to the mean on the horizon?
I mean, I think a lot of the same reasons to why it won't, or a lot of the same reasons why I don't know if the Eagles will go undefeated, but I know they'll at least flirt with that. It's because they just have a great mindset about, like, when I talk about it, it's focus, and protecting the football comes down to focus. And whether coaches want to admit it or not, there are things that happen outside your control that go in your favor. And that is the definition in my mind of luck. Nick Foles throws a pass off of, who is it? Neal's knee in Keanu Neal. Thank you. And it happens to go in the hands of Torrey Smith. Yeah. Okay. That's not something you forced happen. That's luck. So for me, I think luck actually absolutely exists. But the turnover thing for me for the Eagles is I look at Jalen Hurts, and not that he doesn't do it, but he rarely puts the precious pigskin in peril. I see a guy like Miles Sanders, who's had fumbling issues or drop issues as well in his career, not doing that this year. That's a laser focus about this team. And that's ultimately what I think the turnover battle helps them so much with. I mean, you're talking about a team right now who forces more turnovers than anybody. So when you talk about turnover ratio in the NFL, that's going to be pretty good for the Eagles as the season goes on. But when it comes to not giving the football away, I mean, right now you're looking at a guy like Jalen Hurts, who only has thrown 2 interceptions this year. He's second to only Tom Brady, who has 1. And there's a couple guys out there. Daniel Jones also hasn't turned the football over much when it's come to interceptions. They're being smart with the football. They're making efficient plays. They're trusting their receivers to make catches. They're not getting the ball tipped as much. Every once in a while, we'll see Jalen Hurts get a ball tipped to the line, but that is where a little bit of luck happens. It's not tipped into the hands of an opponent. So for me, I think it comes down to just that focus that they have, and I think that's just the way they play the game. For whatever reason, that's the way it's fallen into place. I think that number one reason is focus.
All right, Fargy, last one from me. What will the Folesian Society do if 10 days from now, either as the starting quarterback or coming off the Indianapolis bench, Nick Foles does what Nick Foles does, comes off the bench and throws touchdown passes and wins games, and pins the first loss of the year on the Philadelphia Eagles? What are all those people who have been saying Nick Foles walks on water? What will be their take?
Well, as soon as they get out of the Folesian Society prayer service, which I believe is every Wednesday, they'll tell you, I told you, should have never let this guy go. Look, I think, no, in all seriousness, I'll just think that they'll look at it and go, of course it's Nick Foles that comes back and ends the record and all that. It's the ghost of the Folesian past, I guess, that comes back to haunt the Eagles. But I think it'll be looked at like, just like that. Of all the people, of course, it had to be Foles. And at least it was done by somebody that we love so much. And by the way, it's not going to happen because the Colts are just absolutely. Do you think Jim Irsay is very happy that Daniel Snyder exists? Because if Daniel Snyder didn't exist, Jim Irsay would be getting 10 times more shade.
And think about that. You know, when you talk about luck, Mark, and the stars aligning, the Eagles are 8-0. We're all talking about it, the best team in football. And who are the next two on the schedule? Daniel Snyder's team, Jim Irsay's team.
That's a beautiful thing.
Carson Wentz's team and Nick Foles' team are the next two guys. And, oh, by the way.
And neither are going to play.
John and I talked about it earlier about the unfair criticism that both the new head coach and the owner of the Colts is taking because he decided to go with an outside-the-box hire. We're all assuming that those two guys are on the exact same page. If they get beat this week and they're losing and they're playing the Eagles and the game are close, do you think Jeff Saturday's going to worry one iota about putting in another quarterback and going, oh, my God, I'm going to have to deal with the wrath of my owner? He's going to give him the high finger. I'm trying to win games. What do you mean? Go ahead, fire me. ESPN hasn't even filled my chair yet. Pay me my contract that you foolishly signed, and I'll go back and talk for a living on ESPN. I'm telling you, Foles Foles will be in that game. Mark my words.
I don't doubt it.
I admire the push. I disagree, but I admire the push.
We'll find out in 10 days. Oh, in the meantime, they got to beat the Commanders, which they will. But
Monday, JAKIB Sports pregame show with Mark Barzetta too. I'll be there.
Wow, look at you. That's a seamless plug. Thank you, brother. Oh, by the way, just real quick, I wanted my 3 slightly better hires. Slightly better than Jeff Saturday. So no way good hires. But here they are. Matt Ryan, while he's the backup quarterback.
Why not?
Why not? He's there. Pat McAfee, just because I want someone on the sidelines with less amount of sleevage.
No sleeves.
Than Bill Belichick. And then the last one was Peyton Manning. And I want him to still do the Manning cast for the 2, not 1, but 2 Monday Night Football games the Colts have remaining on their schedule this year.
They got 2 left?
They got 3 primetime games left, my friend.
And
3.
Oh, no. Is the other one Sunday night or Thursday night?
I believe the other one's Sunday night.
They'll be flexed out. Mark my words, they'll be flexed out of that one. That's not staying. Monday night you got to live with. Sunday you can flex out of. Oh, they'll be flexing out of the Indianapolis Colts. Farji, good job. Thanks, brother.
Always a pleasure, fellas. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark.
The Farji Show and the JAKIB Media Eagles pregame show right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. All right, Mac and Mac coming back. We got to put a bow on the show.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Since 1977 at Rafferty Subaru, we have always been about our customers and the community. Early on, a safe and durable option, we've evolved to become the best overall brand according to Kelley Blue Book. Over the last 14 years, we've donated thousands of dollars through the Subaru Share the Love event and found homes for hundreds of pets. The Rafferty family is proud of our 45 years in business. This month, celebrate our anniversary with special financing on select models. Visit us and see why.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Welcome to Pond Lehocky. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Mac guys, final couple of minutes. Appreciate you jumping in here. Speaking of JAKIB Media's other shows, we had Mark Farzad on from the pregame show. Tomorrow we'll have Mike Missinelli, part of the crew on the JAKIB Media postgame show, which Johnny Mac is also a part of. Mikey Mist going to jump in with us tomorrow. Haven't talked to him in over a month. Always good when we get Mike on, so looking forward to that. John, I do want to address one of our streamers here. We don't do this much, but I just saw this, and I think it's something that all Eagle fans have to be aware of, because we're going to talk a lot about how Howie Roseman is going to balance the salary cap and Jalen Hurts' contract and who you want to extend. So you got to understand a couple of things about the salary cap. And I'm not a capologist, but I have a pretty good working knowledge of it from our buddy Dominique Dabney, who was Jaquiski Tart's biggest fan.
Still a Tart fan, isn't?
It's kind of tough to be a Tart fan when he's not in the league. He might have been, but I don't think he's actually on anybody's roster. But Dominique said about juggling salary cap and the like, Kelsey and Fletcher probably gone, literally frees up about $30 million in cap space. Well, nowhere near 30. And oh, by the way, as a matter of fact, it's going to cost the Eagles when both of those guys are gone. They cleaned up the Fletcher thing this offseason. They released him, took all the cap hits, so he is purely on a salary year this year. So when he walks away, you'll be getting back what Fletcher is making this year, which is 15. What's Fletcher's
14,
salary?
I think
14. So you're right. Yeah. That's a $14 million gain if Fletcher is not back. But if Kelsey retires, they're going to take about a $20 million dead cap hit, because Howie kept pushing money forward and pushing money forward and pushing money forward. Jason is actually under contract till 2026. Now, a whole bunch of those are automatically voidable years, but the Eagles prorated the bonuses over those years to balance them out and make it an individual hit less each and every single year. So, no, they're not going to save money when if and when Jason Kelsey decides to retire. The Eagles are not going to save money under the cap. It's going to actually cost them under the cap.
Yeah, and Jason, I always say, be careful. Jason, what he thinks today isn't going to be what he's thinking a month after the season ends and he recharges his batteries. So he's kind of indicated to his friends on the team that this is probably it. But, he can change his mind. I would still hold out hope on
Let's end it on a really high note. I'll get you to project for me here. Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl. Undefeated, not undefeated, blah, 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 whatever else. End of the road. They win a Super Bowl. He gets to pull the mummer's costume out of the closet if that's how he chooses to adorn himself that day. Does a Super Bowl win make it more likely or less likely that Jason Kelsey is back for 2023?
I would think more likely that he retires. I think he'd want to go out on top. I think that would ship towards more likely.
Pretty good way to end it. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. All right, brother. I say we do this again tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. You in?
Let's do it.
Mac and Mac guys right back here on Birds 365 in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365. the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.